What is up, Mile Higher homies?
Welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast, episode 112. And today we are conspiracizing a little bit. We are talking about the disappearance of Amelia Earhart, which is one of my favorite topics. And I'm so glad we're finally doing this today.
A true mystery as well. Something that we really don't know what happened to her.
No,
so
not at all.
We're going to dive into that whole story and all the theories surrounding her disappearance. But we've got some other things we want to talk about beforehand. But before we get into those, we'd like to thank our sponsors for today. We've got Postmates, Stamps.com, ExpressVPN, and Aveo Vision. Thank you guys so much. Also, if you guys haven't checked out the Mile Higher 420 drop, definitely get on there right now and get yourself some really cool merch because we ain't restocking that.
And it's my favorite collection we've dropped yet.
If you love tie-dye, there's some really cool tie-dye stuff. Yep. And there's a really cool MHP logo hollow sticker.
Yes.
That
was your idea.
Gotta get.
And the grinders are so cool.
They're
There's
really
a really cool collection
unique
of those. Super unique. So check them out. And people were asking if they're the same grinders, which they are, right?
Yes.
They're just...
Yeah, they're the 3-part grinders, and they're the same as the MHP logo one. So super cool stuff. Check it out. But let's go ahead and jump into some of the news topics we got. The first thing we're going to cover is some celebrity news. There's a couple celebrities losing their shit, it seems
Multiple this week. It's been a real interesting one.
It really has.
I think the virus is getting to people.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think we're all getting a little stir crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not that surprising. But the fact that Elon Musk has been tweeting a bunch of stuff, and it's been kind of having people go like, what's going on with you, Elon? Because he has been, first of all, tweeting about his stock price of Tesla, and he tweeted that it was too high, and literally the next day it tumbled 9%, and basically stock lost $13 billion in market value, like overnight.
From one of his tweets. Well, it's a really bad sign when the CEO of a company is tweeting about it, and saying that the stock should be lower. Obviously, that just creates so much chaos and uncertainty. So,
which is why when you look at analysts, like they give you a recommendation whether or not to buy Tesla stock or not, it's so split down the middle because the analysts are like, you got to be careful because this thing jumps up and down like crazy, and you never know. It's not exactly a stable stock that you might want to put all your money into. Because
he doesn't seem too stable these days.
Exactly. What else has he been tweeting? He was like,
well, he said, now give the people back their freedom. Let me just pull up his Twitter. Hang on. So the craziness really started on May 1st. He said Tesla stock is too high in my opinion. And then he said, now give people back their freedom. And then he started tweeting the lyrics to the Star Spangled Banner. A rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air. Oh, say does that Star Spangled Banner yet wave? Or the land of the free, home of the brave, with a question mark, though. He's like, he's questioning things.
Well, it's obvious that he's alluding to the fact that he does not believe that we should be on lockdown and that the economy should still be. Absolutely. Well, there's another tweet of, he's been really active on Twitter lately. It's like he doesn't have anything else to do. He's been on Twitter constantly and like interacting with people. So people will reply to his tweets and he's going and replying to their tweets. One of them was a tweet about global fascism, and he replied to that and was like, this is what's going on. And basically, and it had something about the left as well. So it's very interesting. He's definitely leaning on the side of like, we need to open everything back up right now and like, let's end the lockdown.
And he also said, rage against the dying light of consciousness.
I don't know what that's about.
It was a very interesting tweet.
I don't know. And then the fact that he's selling his house and all of his personal belongings.
Yeah, he randomly tweeted, I am selling almost all physical possessions. Will own no house. And then he tweeted as a follow-up to that, my girlfriend, and then tagged her, is mad at me.
Which obviously.
And he said, there's just one stipulation on the sale. I own Gene Wilder's old house and it cannot be torn down or lose any soul. So I guess he's saying that's going to be the only house he keeps. Is he going to actually do that? Something's going on with him.
I don't know what's going on with him.
I don't know either.
Part of me is like, is Elon Musk going to leave the earth soon? Like, is
maybe
he just
he's
going to
like
hop
headed
aboard?
out.
Maybe.
That'd be wild.
I don't know.
There's just a news report like Elon Musk actually went to Mars and he's already there.
He's live streaming in. Hey guys.
Yeah,
I made it from Mars.
Made it here.
I don't know what's going on with him, man, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's definitely frustrated with the fact that, he's business is taking a huge hit. The economy is taking a huge hit.
Well, everyone's fucking frustrated, but
people are ready for stuff to open back up. And at the same time, the health professionals are like, absolutely not. We could have a second wave of this shit coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Or a third wave. And that's concerning to think about, that people want to just throw away all our progress that we've made. Like, by staying in home, we've been set back hugely, but we want that to be for a reason. We want to actually have a benefit from that. And that means lowering our numbers. And if we just ruin it, it's like a waste that we stayed home all this time.
Yeah, that's a really good point, honestly. I didn't even really think of it like that. It's so true, though. I mean, some of us would agree that we need to be doing a lot more than we are, but we are definitely, life has changed a lot. And it's crazy to think that, okay, so we are spending all these, months indoors. And then if we have like a few good months in the summer where things die down a little bit, are people just going to go absolutely crazy and just, disregard any sort of rules or precautions? And then it's just going to come back up when fall hits, and then when flu season comes around.
And is it all for nothing at that point? Yeah, I know.
It's a really tough situation, I think, because I definitely see both sides arguments, and I see that the economy completely crashing, or this continuing for the rest of the year even could be,
it's devastating,
really bad for just the world economy and market in general, and will be a lot harder to dig ourselves out of. But at the same time, can you put a price on somebody's life? And that's the hard thing, is like somebody's life or money. And I think you have to go with people's lives, clearly, because that matters way more than the market or the economy, because all of those things can come back. It will come back. That's the thing, is it might go down some more, but it will bounce back. We just got to take this seriously and get this under control, because I've been out in the past couple of days, and there's already people that literally are acting like there's nothing going on, nothing wrong, no masks, no gloves, no nothing, just walking around doing their thing. And it's very concerning. And then the beaches are opening back up in Florida. Like,
the pictures of the people running. There was a video of someone in Huntington Beach, like not someone, but people, tons of swarms of people running around. It was like a parade.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on? It's just crazy.
I mean, it's not going to stop people either way from congregating. Like, look, there's people protesting in giant numbers, like standing all together, holding signs and coughing all over each other.
I'm surprised that they haven't mandated wearing a mask, and like, you will be fined if you're not wearing a mask.
They tried to do that in, I think, Bulgaria. We have a subscriber from Bulgaria who was telling me about that, but then they ended up getting rid of that.
Because it was just too much of a pain. Because
not everyone had them, and
Well, also, who's going to enforce it?
Right.
Like, police are going to spend all their time. What are you going to
do? Like, put people in jail for that? Or I guess you'd fine them. Yeah. I don't know. This is just the craziest situation. Watching this all unfold has been wild. I mean, just remember like a couple months ago on the podcast when this was all first starting, and we were like, is this, a lot of people are saying it's like the flu, and like we were so uninformed about it. And now this is the number one thing everyone's talking about. It's affecting all of our lives in such a massive way and will change the course of history. I just did not see this coming this year. I mean, who did, right? But it's just mind-blowing how much everything's already changed from this, and going forward, how we're going to continue to see those changes.
Absolutely. And I think that we need to figure out a better system or plan or approach to handling a pandemic like this in the future, because obviously the human population is only going up.
Oh, yeah.
So the chances of another pandemic happening after this is all over are very high. And so what are we going to do about it in the future? Like, is there going to be better ways? Like, the fact that we didn't even have like ways to disinfect large areas readily available is very, very concerning. Like, it's taken so long. Like, I think a Chinese company finally came up with a type of sanitizer that can be sprayed over everything, and it does a really good job at cleaning things. And right now only like hotels have it and places like that, but they're working on making it for everybody to have, so you can actually go and like disinfect your home and car and everything else. But it's super expensive right now. So the fact that that's not already developed, the government doesn't already have this in their supply house to bring out for a pandemic, we're just not prepared.
Because they don't want to invest in things that might happen, like preparing for the worst. It seems like, they're kind of just waiting until something bad happens and then hoping we can pick ourselves up enough after the fact, which is just scary that that's actually how it works. You'd like to think that the government would be a lot more prepared and ready for a situation like this.
Yeah. Well, what doesn't make sense to me is the fact that the government has been spending millions of dollars in Somalia right now.
Oh yeah. I did see that. I saw that.
They've been doing like a record number of airstrikes this year. The media doesn't talk about it at all. And, civilians are getting killed. They're claiming they're going after terrorists in Somalia. And we're spending millions and millions of dollars just keeping our military out in the world, attacking things and attacking groups. And meanwhile, back at home where, people are dying by the thousands from this virus.
And just all the secretive money that's spent in the military all the time, It's like people always like to say, well, the government can only help us so much, but they can be doing so much more.
They could reallocate resources.
They could be helping small businesses. They could really save us from this, but,
Nope. It's all about their agenda and what they want to do at the end of the day.
100%.
Speaking of that, though, let's get into this next guy who's completely lost his shit.
Another person.
Yeah, you think Elon Musk has lost his shit?
Yeah.
Just wait.
Yeah, definitely. Alex Jones has him beat.
Yes. Longtime conspiracy theorist and now just whack job. Pretty much is the best word for him. He has completely lost all sense of reality because a clip from his show that he does, because he's pretty much banned everywhere.
Yeah.
But on his website, he can still do a show, I think. And a recent clip emerged of him saying some crazy ass shit.
Well, the clip was actually posted by his wife, who was very concerned about his behavior and mental state. So we'll just go ahead and play that. And that's ex-wife, by the way.
I'll admit it. I will eat my neighbors. I'm not letting my kids die. I'm just going to be honest. My superpower is being honest. I've extrapolated this out, and I won't have to for a few years since I got food and stuff. But I'm literally looking at my neighbors now and going, I'm ready to hang them up and gut them and skin them and chop them up. And you know what? I'm ready. My daughters aren't starving to death. I'll eat my neighbors. See, my superpower is being honest. I'll eat your ass. I will. I'm combat model, optimum self-sufficiency, probably the leader. The point is have you thought about that yet? Because I'm somebody that thought I could fix this, and I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbors. You think I like sizing up my neighbor, how I'm going to haul him up by a chain and chop his ass up? I'll do it. My children aren't going hungry. I will eat your ass. And that's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass first.
Cringe. Okay, he's either lost his mind completely or he's going like full Trisha Paytas troll mode.
Yeah, maybe he's just doing this for attention.
Yeah, I mean, how else is he getting attention these days? He's shut out of pretty much everything. So if he wants people to hear about him, he's got to make the news in some crazy fucking way.
That's one way.
Or is he just actually batshit crazy? Because I don't know. He seemed pretty serious about that shit.
Well, the thing about Alex Jones is what he does is he takes news that comes out and then he essentially extrapolates it and makes it like worst case doomsday scenario. Because, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that think that we're like in the last days of Earth right now. And,
maybe.
That would suck.
I don't know. I mean, we could be.
It's been pretty bad.
I like to be a little bit more optimistic than that.
Yeah, I do too. But I'm
this
just saying,
isn't the end.
They might be right. I mean, I don't know.
It's true. We don't know. So the thing is that like recently the World Health Organization warned about possible food shortages in some countries due to global travel restrictions that are in place right now to prevent the spread of the virus, obviously, as well as like meat packing plants are closing their doors and stuff because the risk is just too high of infection. So there's, seemingly going to be some shortages of food. And then Alex Jones takes that and says, I'm ready to eat my neighbors. I'm going to eat your ass. My kids aren't going to go hungry because I'm going to eat your ass. It reminds me of like some Purge shit or something, like the movie The Purge. Like that's where Alex Jones's mindset is right now. The Purge is about to commence and it's every man for himself.
Is he really? Does he mean that shit when he says it? Like, come on.
I think unfortunately, Alex Jones crawled into the rabbit hole all those years ago. And he has since
fully
lost his way completely.
Yeah.
And now he's in some other fucking dimension where shit is fucking out of control and like there's shit happening all around. Yeah, he's completely lost it. Because I mean, he acts like that everywhere he goes. Any show he's on, any clip I've ever seen of him.
The dude looks so angry all the time too. He's just like,
he's like barking at you.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna eat your ass.
Which is unfortunate because Alex Jones, I mean, he's kind of one of the OG conspiracy guys.
Yeah. And he wasn't bad back in the day.
Right.
I just filmed a video on Bohemian Grove and Alex Jones got that footage. He snuck in there. He's the only motherfucker to do it, to go into the Bohemian Grove and get footage. Yeah, he was kind of like a journalist back in the day. He was like close with Joe Rogan and a lot of people. He was like respected somewhat.
Yeah.
But yeah, not anymore. Definitely not anymore.
So, drugs or something along the way completely
money
derailed him. Yeah, money too.
But we could talk about Alex Jones all day. Why don't we go ahead and get into the latest UFO news?
Yeah, so this week, the Pentagon came out and formally released 3 unclassified videos of what they're calling unidentified aerial phenomena. That's the new term that the government has coined UFO sightings, essentially. It's no longer UFO, it's unidentified aerial phenomena. Now, what's
UFP.
UAP.
I mean, sorry, UAP.
UFP.
The first person I heard saying UAP was Hillary Clinton.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I've heard her say that many times.
Or was it Tom DeLonge when we listened?
No, it was well, the first person I heard saying it was Hillary Clinton.
Okay. Well, these 3 videos, which if you haven't seen them, they're pretty interesting to look at. They're captured by military aircraft, and they definitely show what looks to be some type of saucer, in my opinion. A lot of them look like disc-shaped craft, and they're moving at high rates of speed, and they're turning and doing all these maneuvers that are not possible with any known human technology at this time.
Now, if you've watched our podcast for a while, you've probably seen these clips or heard us talking about it or seen it elsewhere because it did make it to CNN last time and stuff on the mainstream. So I was kind of confused about why this all came back again.
Well, the thing about it is there's been all this like controversy about how this sort of has gone down. But apparently what happened is that back in 2017 is when the New York Times published that article, and apparently they obtained that footage illegally. It wasn't actually declassified yet. So it was still classified, but it got leaked. That's the thing, is there's a lot of people that think that it wasn't, this was on purpose, leaked to the stars, because it was at the same time that, Tom DeLonge and To the Stars Academy of Sciences or whatever, they came out, were like, this is our footage, and they got a hold of it. It's this whole rabbit hole that you can go down with these government programs and studying UFOs. But the bottom line is that the government, the official U.S. Pentagon, came out and said, these are 3 videos that we captured, and they show these unidentified aerial phenomena, or these objects that we don't know what they are. And according to them, they're like, as far as we know, they don't pose any risk to national security, so why not release them? So they're formally released, and they basically admitted that UFOs are real. So with that being said, what are the implications of that? And the fact that it seems like nobody really took this seriously or even cared that this kind of came out this week.
Yeah, it blew over pretty quick.
Well, yeah, it's like nobody gives a shit.
I know.
When we could, who's piloting these craft? That's what I want to know. If they're not human, they're not known by any sort of government or military in the world.
No one's claiming them.
What is it?
I guess that's what I'm confused about, is the fact that, okay, so this is released and the Pentagon has, officially been like, yes, it is not us. We don't know what this is. So are you admitting that there's aliens? And if you are admitting that there's aliens, why are we not freaking out?
I think they're trying to make it, this whole unidentified phenomena. Like, it could be anything. It could be aliens, but it could be anything and
what else would
anyone,
it
guys. I feel like that's their way of getting the people that really don't believe, like the skeptical people, to be like, oh yeah, it's probably just something else.
What else would it be?
Well, that's what people say all the time. It could be anything. It could be spy planes. It could be this. It could be that. And maybe they're right. I mean, for all we know, it could be a time traveler. We don't even know what.
That's still just as mind-blowing as an alien.
I know, but okay. I know. Well, the average population doesn't understand those things and doesn't want to accept it. But yeah, it is kind of weird that why wouldn't this make more news or really like be the top leading story?
Right. Why don't they have all their little panelists on 12 hours a day discussing what is this about and what could it be? They don't do that for this kind of stuff.
A lot of people think they were like trying to re-release this information to create a distraction from coronavirus and what a mess it all is. But I'm like, it didn't even work if that was the plan.
Well, I think a lot of people believe that the real story here is this slow leak of information about a topic that we've, if you believe in this UFO alien phenomenon, then you probably believe that the U.S. government or military has known about extraterrestrial life for a long, long time. And it's now just slowly starting to be leaked out to us via disclosure. And the problem here is, and what we learned from, when we listened to, there's a great Joe Rogan episode with Tom DeLonge about this whole subject and just what he knows. And the people who worked in the Pentagon for this UFO program said that there is a national security issue here, which is interesting. They're saying there's some type of threat with...
Yeah, he kept bringing up the threat. Well, I guess anything that's unknown is technically a threat.
Right. But the fact that they're really like, they're not approaching this with an open mind. They're seemingly already made up their mind that whatever's piloting these UFOs or whatever the UFOs are, they are a threat to our national security and the rest of the world. Because Dr. Greer, who we talk about a lot of the time, because he's kind of one of the leading people in the ufology community, and he actually tweeted out saying that the point of the Pentagon and mainstream media re-releasing this Tic Tac video, etc., is to attach the alien threat narrative to the UFO subject while the planet is already in panic over the pandemic.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And
Leave it to Dr. Greer to clear it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's been predicting this all along, that this was how it was going to roll out. They're going to start
leaking things out like that.
Right, which is very alarming because if you think about it, I mean, the next thing that we all face after this pandemic could be a literal alien invasion.
Oh my God.
That's, hoaxed by the government, or I mean, some type of false flag alien attack. Like, that's crazy to think about.
I know it is, but
yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I thought you meant like alien invasion, actual aliens, but now it's like, why do aliens don't care enough about us? I feel like, but I could totally see them, creating one to
scare us,
and then be like, listen up, guys, you got to do exactly what you do. We got to, what we tell us you need to do in order to stay alive, so that you don't die from these alien invasions. And
it's possible it could happen
if aliens are invading, or if that's what people think is happening, and if you aren't educated or open-minded or already kind of preparing for aliens, then you're going to be like, hell yeah, I'll do whatever you say you want me to do.
Save us. Yeah. Become desperate.
Well, and it's been commonly said that the next war is going to be in space.
Wow.
Which with this timeline, with this timeline, I mean, with the actual Space Force being formed, and that's like a legitimate thing now. It's an actual branch, and they're going to start recruiting for it and all of that. Like, the next war could be some type of alien, hoaxed alien attack.
What if
from
our
outer
first
space.
son, when they're 18 years old, is drafted to the space war?
I'll go with them.
No, you will not.
I'll
Your
sign
old
up and
ass
go
is
with
staying
them.
home with me.
All right, sounds good. But it's just, I don't know, it's an interesting thought, and definitely if you haven't checked out those videos, go take a look at them because they're very interesting. But I believe they're copyrighted at this point, so unfortunately, I won't be able to show you them. But
that sucks.
We'll link it for you so you can check it out. But let's get into the disappearance of Amelia Earhart because we got so many things to cover. But before we do, we'd like to thank our first sponsors for today. Okay, so we all know how ExpressVPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But here's something you might not know. You can also use ExpressVPN to unlock movies and shows that are only available in other countries. This past week, I discovered that by using ExpressVPN, I'm able to binge watch Rick and Morty on Netflix France. It was super easy to do. All I had to do is fire up the ExpressVPN app and change my location to France, refresh Netflix, and that's it. See, ExpressVPN hides your IP address and lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. Love anime? Use ExpressVPN to access Japanese Netflix and be spirited away. There are hundreds of VPNs out there, but the reason I use ExpressVPN to watch shows is because it's ridiculously fast. There's never any buffering or lag, and you can stream in HD no problem. So if you want to get access to all the Netflix libraries, visit my link right now at expressvpn.com/milehigher, and you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Support the show and watch what you want and protect yourself with ExpressVPN at expressvpn.com/milehigher.
Given what's going on in the world, Postmates has created non-contact deliveries. So now when we order from local restaurants or anywhere else, everything gets left right at our front door. They also have Postmates Pickup, which we have been using to order takeout from our favorite local restaurants. Right now is a great time to be supporting your local neighborhood restaurants with pickup or delivery. I've only been ordering local because it's a great way to support my community. And Postmates doesn't just deliver burgers or sushi. They actually make life easier by picking up everything we need from Walgreens, 7-Eleven, the grocery store, and dropping it outside of our front door. All you have to do is download Postmates on iOS or Android, find your favorites, and get anything you want delivered within the hour. And for a limited time, Postmates is giving our listeners $100 of free delivery credit for your first 7 days. To start your free deliveries, download the app and use the code MILEHIGHER. That's code MILEHIGHER for $100 of free delivery credit for your first 7 days when you download the Postmates app. Anything you need, anytime you need it, Postmates that shit. All right. Let's get into talking about Amelia Earhart, who is one of the baddest bitches of our time.
Hell yeah.
She did some amazing stuff in her lifetime. She is super, super brave and totally inspirational, but had obviously a very unfortunate ending to her.
Well, maybe. I mean, for all we know, maybe not.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe not.
That's what we shall explore today.
But let's go ahead and start with her history.
Yes. So Amelia Earhart was born in Atchison, Kansas on July 24th, 1897. Thinking about the 1800s right now. It's just like being born at the turn of the fucking century. Like,
yeah.
Hey, we were born at the turn of the century. Well, not born, but we
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
we went through the century.
Yeah, we're millennials.
Yeah, we're millennials.
Anyway.
But she was born in 1897, and her family moved around the Midwest quite a bit due to financial struggles. Because, I mean, there was a lot going on at this time in history. So work was hard to come by, and they just felt like, you know, you kind of had to move around where the work was.
Definitely.
Amelia saw her first airplane at the age of 10 and was not impressed. It was a thing of rusty wire and wood and looked not interesting at all. So not impressed initially.
Initial airplanes weren't that great.
No, the original ones look dangerous.
Well, at first they were just like basically attaching wings to themselves and like running over the hill and like getting some air and like
yeah, seriously.
trying to get a little bit off the ground, but
I always think
I'm
about
not
like
sure what it was like.
the Wright brothers and stuff, and
Yeah.
like how the fact that they invented the airplane and those first trials, like, all right, guys, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna strap these pieces of wood to our arms and
Everyone thought they were
run
crazy.
and jump off of a high point.
I know.
They're like, we're going to turn into a massive bird and see how this works.
The invention of the airplane, just in general, is like such an interesting thing.
I know.
'Cause
And it just revolutionized everything.
it really did change the course of human history for.
Ever.
Think about living before there were airplanes. Like you couldn't get to go see your grandparents in Massachusetts or wherever they live very easily. It would be so hard to
days.
see everyone or do anything. You couldn't even get across the ocean. I mean, unless you took a boat. Airplanes just changed everything and gave
really
us
did.
humans the ability to see much more of the earth with our time while we're here.
Absolutely. It's kind of like the internet in a way.
Yeah.
It like unlocked all of this ability to see as much as you can possibly want to see in a lot easier way. So,
And Amelia was always interested in that.
yeah, she really liked that because she was like definitely like of the tomboy type.
I hate that word, but yeah.
Yeah, like what even is that word? It sounds
know,
like some
it's so
ancient
stupid.
stereotype we put on a female that, you know, just
Yeah.
happens to be into things that
Yeah. She was
guys are
into
into.
climbing trees and known for belly slamming her sled to get it going down a hill.
What a
she's
tomboy.
She hunted rats with her rifle.
And that to me is stupid too.
It's
Like
just very unladylike.
it is, yeah. Well, back in the day, I mean, the social norms were so different,
I know.
and the gender norms were so different. I mean, we've really come a long way since then.
Yeah. And Amelia Earhart was one of those first people initially breaking down those barriers
Yeah.
and being like, no, there is no definition for a woman. And
Right,
how
I'm gonna
supposed
do what I
act
wanna
and
do.
be. Yeah, exactly.
And that's what she did. And she also like kept a scrapbook of different magazine articles, which she would put like inspiring women in it from different fields that she would sort of follow, like film production, law, marketing, management, and mechanical engineering. So all of these women out there doing really cool things that she really, you know, she chose them as her idol and role model growing up. And I'm sure there was only a few of them that she really knew about in those different fields. Like nowadays you could count off, you know, 10 in each of those different fields.
And they're so much more accessible now to see women that are inspiring. You can log onto the internet and find a video of an inspiring woman or a TED Talk and have much more inspiration for us as women. But back then, it was not as much. You had to like collect up a few articles that you could find and, you know, a few rare examples to give you that inspiration. It was totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in 1919, Amelia Earhart enrolled in Columbia University, but ended up quitting a year later to be with her parents in California. So she never even finished college. It wasn't until December 28th, 1920 that Amelia finally rode in a plane for the first time at the age of 23 years old in Long Beach, California. And the person that piloted the plane was Frank Hawks, who would later be known as a famous air racer. That was like one of the things that they first did was like race these planes around.
I know.
Like that was the thing.
That's weird. You never hear that now.
No.
There's no air racing anymore.
No,
Can you
not
imagine
at all.
how dangerous. Oh my God.
Well, yeah, because planes go like 400 miles per hour. Like, can you imagine like going outside and they just had like 747s racing in the air and how loud that would be?
That'd be insane.
Like
That'd be
with
bad.
jet engines now. It'd
You're
be
like
super
flying
loud.
in a commercial jet and you see someone come by and they're like, hey, United versus Southwest. Like, let's go, guys.
Seriously. So different versus like little propeller planes that they had back then. But this first flight that she went on cost $10, which was a lot of money back then.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment that she rode in the plane, it changed her life forever. Because by the time that she had gotten 200 or 300 feet off the ground, she knew she had to fly.
So she began saving all her money for flying lessons and worked a lot of different jobs, including photographer, truck driver, stenographer for a phone company. What is a stenographer?
I think it's a stenographer.
Stenographer? Can you look it up? What is it?
Some type of writing.
Some type of writer? Oh.
It's just somebody that writes down phone conversations.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
A lot of time it's used in like court reporting, it says, or closed captioning.
Okay. But through all these little jobs, she quickly saved up $1,000, which was a lot back then, and spent that on her first flying lesson.
That's so cool.
So January 3rd, 1921, she took her first lesson. And instantly she became super in love with flying and just created a real passion for herself around it.
Yeah, so much so that she saved up her money again and bought her own plane in July 1921. And
super impressive.
Yeah, and then got her pilot's license in December as well. And her first plane was a 1922 model Aviatrix Kinner Airster, which had an open cockpit.
That's wild.
Isn't
Your
it?
hair would look insane.
Well, they had their little caps, those little flying caps
yeah.
with the goggles.
Amazing.
Oh, that's so weird.
Because there's an open cockpit, you're literally just like heads exposed to the, sky.
That's gotta like hurt your ears.
Your mouth is probably like
so dry. Yeah.
Well, they have
the
like
ear
a little
pressure
thing to block the air.
What if it's
coming in.
cold?
Well, I don't think you go up nearly
you
as
don't
high,
think-
but
right.
I still wonder how, you're
Oh,
still
you do?
pretty far up there though.
Yeah, it's a little breezy up there still,
No, she actually broke a record in this thing on October 22nd, 1922, when she flew to a height of 14,000 feet in this aircraft. And by doing this, she broke the record for female pilots
Wow.
for
Going
getting
that
her
high.
plane that high. Yeah.
But 14,000 feet is like half of what we fly now. Or don't we usually coast to like 30 or so?
36 in the large international planes.
Okay.
They get up there 40,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
They get 14,000 feet's really not that high, I guess. It's like the mountain height.
Mm-hmm.
So just
Yeah.
above the mountains.
14er.
Yeah. But that's still pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
So on May 15th, 1923, she became the 16th woman in history to be issued an international pilot's license.
Isn't it crazy how fast she just like pounded out these tests and
Oh yeah.
it was getting
her
these
whole life.
licenses? It's
Determined.
Yeah, it's so true.
In 1927, Charles Lindbergh became the first person to fly across the Atlantic solo, which was super inspirational for her.
Yeah, and such a big deal too. How scary everybody must have, or how scared everybody must have been when he did that, and like didn't think it was possible. And there you go, flew across the entire Atlantic Ocean. And after this happened, pilot Amy Phipps Guest wanted to become the first female to complete the same feat. However, she decided the trip was too dangerous for her to take and offered to sponsor the project instead. And she's quoted as suggesting finding another girl with the right image, which is interesting because they were definitely, the people that were involved in this field were all kind of similar. The women were like, they wanted a strong woman to do this. That would be, such a big thing that they would end up being like legendary one day. They knew that this was how it'd be. So
a big figurehead for America.
Yeah, exactly. So in April of 1928, Amelia Earhart received a phone call from Captain Hilton H. Riley, who asked if she would like to fly over the Atlantic. And a few months later, on June 17th, 1928, Amelia Earhart became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic on the airplane Friendship with Bill Stoltz and Slim Gordon.
Slim Gordon.
How long you got Slim Gordon? You're good.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Because they had to have multiple people on the plane because multiple people did different roles. Like there wasn't all these computers and shit on the plane that there is now.
There's no autopilot?
No autopilot. So like one person has to fucking steer and fly the plane. Then somebody's got to actually make sure they're mapping everything and keeping track of where they're flying. And then somebody else, I don't know what the third guy does.
Especially for such a long flight, because this took them 20 hours and 40 minutes before they finally landed on Harbor of Bury Point in Wales, or Bury Port in Wales. Sorry.
Can you imagine 20 hours in a seat?
No.
Like that, flying over the ocean.
That's longer than any flight I've had. The longest I've had is 15.
God.
20 hours straight. Can you even take a flight like that these days? I bet you can.
Yeah, you can take a 20-hour flight.
That's crazy.
But It's not like
and you're not in a nice plane.
No. But despite her desire to have been in more of a pilot position for the trip, because she really wanted to fly the thing, even when she returned to New York after the trip was over, she was still deemed a hero, even though she didn't actually pilot the plane herself. And after that, she gave lectures against the war and for women's rights and wrote a book and a ton of articles. But this was not enough, as she was now determined to repeat the trip, but do it solo this time. And in preparation for this, she entered in her first women's competitive air racing contest in 1929, which was a race that spanned from Santa Monica to Cleveland.
That's so weird to think about air races.
Well, also think about back then, like there wasn't all of this like air traffic in the sky. So there wasn't that much to worry about flying up there. So you could have like an air race. I mean, that's the biggest thing now with air racing is there's so many planes up there.
There's just too much risk.
Yeah, somebody's bound to crash. However, during the last leg of the race, her and her friend Ruth Nichols were tied for first place. And Nichols was due to take off before Amelia, but instead her plane hit a tractor at the end of the runway and flipped over. And Amelia Earhart was such a good friend that instead of taking off and getting the lead in the race, she ran to the wreckage and pulled her friend Nichols out. Wow. And after she confirmed that she wasn't injured at all, she got back in the plane and continued the race. And this cost her essentially winning the race, and she finished in third.
Wow. Good friend. Good person.
Yeah, absolutely good person. And then on February 7th, 1931, Amelia got married to George Putnam after he proposed to her 6 times.
Damn.
After interviewing her about her transatlantic flight. But it wasn't a traditional marriage for the time, and Amelia very much considered it more of a partnership, 50-50 type of split. She actually authored a letter and gave it to him on their wedding day that said, "I want you to understand I shall not hold you to any medieval code of faithfulness to me.
Nor shall I consider myself bound to you similarly." She also decided to keep her maiden name of Earhart, and eventually many people would refer to her husband as Mr. Earhart.
Hell yeah.
And they never had children. Very alternative life for a typical woman, according to society, She really didn't like to play by the rules in any way.
No, not at all. And it's interesting that it was probably rare for a man to do this type of thing
yeah, it's rare now, especially in 1932.
I know.
I'm sure people were pissed. People think it's still weird when women don't change their name. Back then, but she didn't give a fuck.
There were such standards back then and so many rules of society. I mean, I don't even think there were marriages between races back then, really.
Yeah, I don't believe so.
They were highly frowned upon. They may have not even been legal at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure at what point.
So yeah, it just shows you to go against the traditional marriage in any sense she was extremely, bold.
Really bold. But after years of preparation and lots of flying, on May 20th, 1932, Amelia Earhart became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean.
This flight was actually super dangerous because the weather was changing so rapidly and her altimeter was broken, so she couldn't even tell how high she was flying.
Which I feel like would be really dangerous to be kind of guessing what altitude you're flying at, because back then, if you go wrong by just a little bit, that could be really deadly.
It could cause your life, for sure.
Well, I think it probably wasn't too bad because she was flying over the ocean and the ocean's super flat. So
that's true.
And you can see it.
But just in general, like altitude is, can be really dangerous if you drop altitudes too quickly or you're not flying at the correct one, if you're not getting your oxygen. Because I don't think back then they were necessarily super as safe as they are now in order to deal with quick altitude changes,
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, how would she know if like her plane stalled or something? Which just goes to show like what an expert pilot she was. Because on top of that, she experienced a gas leak in the cockpit. And at one point during the flight, the plane dropped about 3,000 feet and went in a spin as flames were shooting out of the exhaust manifold.
That's crazy. How scary.
And she was fearless and completed the trip nevertheless.
It's amazing.
Because the trip itself was flying from Canada to Ireland, and it took her 15 hours and 18 minutes. And it was the second ever solo flight across the Atlantic and the longest nonstop flight by a woman at 2,026 miles.
On June 21st, 1932, President Herbert Hoover presented her with the National Geographic Society Medal for that specific flight.
Yeah, which was a huge award for her. And it also kind of gave her some fame in that sense. And she really became an icon for women across the world.
Yeah.
And
just like she had saved those articles about other women, now she was becoming one of those people herself and inspiring others.
Exactly. And she didn't stop creating records. On August 25th, 1932, she became the first woman to fly solo from coast to coast in the U.S., flying from Los Angeles, California to Newark, New Jersey in 19 hours and 5 minutes.
Imagine it taking fucking 19 hours to get from California to New Jersey. Oh my gosh.
That's a long flight, man.
That is. In July of 1933, she beat her own record for completing the same trip in 17 hours and 7 minutes. So she shaved a little bit of time off there, but still 17 hours. Damn.
That's crazy.
That's such a long flight to go to New Jersey.
Yeah, what happens if you have to pee? Like straight up. There's no bathrooms
That's
on
so
there,
true.
I'm pretty sure. So
Maybe she's like peeing in a bottle.
yeah, and then you just throw it out the window.
Yeah, exactly.
But she's not being in a bottle. I'm sure she probably had a diaper or
Did
something.
she have
You think
snacks?
she was wearing a diaper? We don't know.
No, I bet she had a diaper.
Comment if you know.
This is what we're thinking of.
Comment if you know. Nobody knows what she was wearing. But that's true. Like she obviously, I mean, I think you could still like get your plane just going level and you could just not touch it and then sit there.
In 1935, she became the first woman to complete the Bendix Trophy race and placed fifth, which is quite impressive given that her plane was far below the quality of all the other racers.
Just an expert pilot, man. Because her plane topped out at a max speed of 195 miles per hour, while her competitors' planes could hit closer to 300. So traveling 195 miles per hour for 17 hours, like in a plane.
Crazy.
Not very fast.
On January 11th, 1935, Amelia Earhart became the first person to ever fly solo from Hawaii to California, which is a big trek.
And clearly not scared of flying over the open ocean, too. No fear at all.
Not at all. In April 19th, 1935, she became the first person to fly from California to Mexico City.
She just wanted to break all the records and do bigger and better flights every single time.
Keep achieving more.
Exactly.
And then on March 17th, 1937, Amelia Earhart began her first attempt to become the first woman to fly around the whole world. And for this trip, she took Paul Mantz, Harry Manning, and Fred Noonan.
However, the airplane that they were going to take experienced a number of different problems, and ultimately they had to call this flight off. Mm-hmm. But this did not stop Amelia Earhart from trying again.
Absolutely not. But before we get into her last flight, we'd like to thank our last sponsors for today.
The last thing I want to do right now is go to the post office because A, I don't want to be around other people, and B, I don't want to have to wait in line just to get into the post office. Plus, it's a pain to drive all the way there and have to haul all of the packages I need to mail with me. That's why I love Stamps.com, because they bring all of the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your computer in the safety and comfort of your own home. I love Stamps.com because it's open 24/7 and you can get postage for any letter, any package, or any class of mail to send anywhere you need to at any time of the day. And once your mail is ready or package is ready, just leave it for your mail carrier or schedule a free pickup online. I save tons of money with Stamps.com because you get great discounts. You get 5 cents off every first class stamp and up to 40% off USPS shipping rates. And right now, our listeners get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale without any long-term commitment. Just go to Stamps.com and click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Mile Higher. That's Stamps.com, enter code Mile Higher. Stay safe, my friends.
Daily contact lenses are easy and convenient, which are two things that we all need right now. Working from home, staring at screens, chasing kids around the yard all day. Wouldn't it be nice to have comfortable, technology advanced contacts delivered right to your door? That's where Aveo comes in. Aveo provides advanced, super hydrating, all-day, comfortable daily contacts at an affordable price delivered right to your door. It's currently the only subscription contact lens company that offers both regular daily contacts as well as daily toric contacts for astigmatism, which I need, and I've never been able to use a subscription lens company in the past because of that. Aveo lets you customize your delivery schedule and personalize your plan so you only get the contacts that you need on your schedule. Aveo is donating a portion of all sales to Direct Relief, providing masks, gloves, and other protective gear to our healthcare heroes. They are offering our listeners the best deal anywhere. Get a 10-day trial pack for $1. That's $1 at aveovision.com/milehigher. That's spelled AVEO vision.com/milehigher for your 10-day trial pack for $1.
Amelia Earhart was determined to fly around the world. So on June 1st, 1937, she made a second attempt with only Fred Noonan by her side this time. And she also had to take a different aircraft because the other plane that she had previously tried to fly around the world with was being repaired because of what had happened. And so they took a different aircraft, which was a Lockheed Electra 10E. This is not an open aircraft. This is definitely a closed one. So Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan took off from Miami, Florida. And obviously you can't go one way around the world. So they stopped in South America and then in Africa and then in Southeast Asia. And then they finally arrived in Lae, New Guinea on June 29th, 1937. And at this point in their trip, they had traveled about 22,000 miles with only 7,000 miles left to go. So they had made like almost 3/4 of the trip.
Yeah, they were almost done
when they stopped in New Guinea. And on July 2nd, 1937, around midnight, they took off from Lae, New Guinea towards Howland Island, which is a very small sliver of flat land. But unfortunately, they lost communication, and at this point, they were never heard from again. So during their approach to Howland Island, the United States Coast Guard ship Itasca did receive strong and clear transmissions from Amelia Earhart, but she was unable to hear their return transmissions. At 7:42 a.m., Amelia Earhart transmitted, "We must be on you, but we cannot see you, but gas is running low. Have been unable to reach you by radio. We are flying at 1,000 feet." Wow, they were not flying very high off the top of the ocean at all. At 7:58 a.m., Amelia reported that she was unable to hear the Itasca and requested that they send voice signals, but they were unable to send their transmissions at the frequency requested. So Itasca sent Morse code signals instead, and Amelia did receive these transmissions but was not able to determine their direction. Because you got to think, like, communication back then, especially way out in the middle of the ocetion, was not great. So it was hard to receive transmissions and signals because they're out in the middle of the ocean. I mean, it's still hard out in the middle of the ocean. The last documented transmission came at 8:43 a.m. from Amelia, which said, "We are on the line 157-337. We will repeat this on 6210 kilocycles. Wait." But a few moments later, she reappears on the transmission saying, "We are running on line north and south." These transmissions seem to indicate that they had actually reached Howland's position, but they were actually off by 5 nautical miles. And at this point, the Itasca even tried creating large smoke signals for the pilots, but they obviously did not see it. And on this particular day, the weather was scattered clouds around the island, and so it created dark shadows on the surface of the ocean, which from above, it would have been indistinguishable from the island's flat surface, so they would look virtually the same.
Wouldn't be able to find it.
So obviously there's a lot of reasons for why their communication could have failed or they would have been unable to land properly. So one of the theories for why they were not able to land properly would have been because Fred Noonan had documented problems with the accuracy of the radio direction as well as navigating just in general. Because it seems, I mean, they're off 5 nautical miles, so clearly something was off with navigation. Others say that Amelia Earhart wasn't familiar enough with her new Bendix direction finding loop antenna, which is why the transmissions may have failed as well. There's also a theory that the United States Coast Guard cutter Itasca was on Howland Island waiting for their arrival. However, they may have just been confused about the scheduled landing time because of lack of communication. There's actually a video clip of the last footage of Amelia Earhart that we have of them taking off from Lae, New Guinea. It's really, really short. I don't even think there's sound to it. So the footage just shows them getting ready to take off, and there's all these people, around the plane. There she is hopping into the cockpit.
Wow. It's a pretty cool plane for back then, I feel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they had to have like the best of the best for that flight.
There she goes.
Taking off and...
Wow. Never to be seen again. And in that footage, you can see, well, some people think that you can see that the antenna mounted underneath the fuselage may have been torn off or even cut off by Amelia or Fred themselves due to being annoyed with it, from having to crank it in the back.
Yeah, because they had to do it every time they used it. They crank it out. It's like landing gears, putting them down and up.
Some people think they got rid of it and it may have caused the trouble.
Right. Well, yeah, because based on the video, don't really see it. But I don't know. I have a hard time believing that they would have just like ripped it off if it was annoying. Like, she was an expert pilot. Why would she do that?
That's so true.
This is a little annoying. I'm just going to rip it off and hope for the best.
And there was also just a lot of confusion about, figuring out where her transmissions were originating from, because they were obviously trying to figure out where they went. And, all the different locations that it seemed to originate from were just kind of all over the place. and being on and just coming from different islands. So it wasn't sure, because there's a lot of islands in this area. So it could have come from any of the different islands, or, not from the islands at all. But Pan American Airways actually concluded that one of the transmissions had to have come from land, since water would have shorted out the Electra's electrical system. After Amelia Earhart's last recorded transmission, it only took an hour before the United States Coast Guard and the Itasca cutter started their search for them.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so many young people would have been just crushed to find this out. So many people in general, and they were. This was a super upsetting event. And so, of course, they're going to get people out there immediately and try to find her. She was like a huge representation of the country.
So based on initial assumptions about where the transmission seemed to come from, the crew headed north and west of Howland Island to search. And eventually they even got the United States Navy involved in order to try and find Earhart and Noonan. And eventually the United States Navy was called in to help expand the search efforts in order to try and hopefully recover Earhart and Noonan. They actually had a naval aircraft fly over several islands in the area, including Gardner Island, which had been uninhabited for over 40 years. Yeah, this area out there, you ever heard about New Guinea and stuff? Like, yeah, there's not much out there except for a few islands with native peoples on it that have been there for a really, really long time. And according to the findings from the naval aircraft, it said, here signs of recent habitation were clearly visible, but repeated circling and zooming failed to elicit any answering wave from possible inhabitants, and it was finally taken for granted that none were there. That's very interesting, because they said that they saw signs of recent habitation, but, they tried to make contact with anybody that would have been there on the ground, and they found nothing. There was also a lagoon at Gardner Island, which looked sufficiently deep and certainly large enough for a plane or even an airboat, or even an airboat, or even an airboat, or even an airboat could have landed or take off in any direction with little, if any, difficulty. So they're essentially looking for any islands that might have a possibility for Earhart and Noonan to land on and potentially take off from, but they weren't finding anything. The Navy concluded that Amelia Earhart could have landed her aircraft in that lagoon and then swum or waded ashore. So there was enough room for her to put it down if in an emergency she had to do that. But then again, there was no evidence that that's what had happened.
You would have found something.
Right.
And there were signals being reported for up to 5 days after they went missing. But on July 19th, 1937, the search was finally called off.
So they were holding out hope, and obviously getting signals is potentially a good sign, but nothing turned up. And this search cost a total of $4 million and became the most extensive and costly rescue effort in United States history at this particular time. And obviously during this time, recovery missions were, rudimentary at best. They were definitely had to go off of basic initial assumptions. You hear signals, you follow the signals if you can. And, their search efforts probably weren't as good as they would have been to today. No. And we'd have the ability to search more area, because 5 nautical miles, that's still a decent ways off. So they might have been searching within that instead of going out that far.
But even though the official search ended, George Putnam, her husband, funded his own private search for her with the local authorities of the nearby Pacific Islands.
Yeah, and in July 1937, he chartered 2 boats and initiated a search of the Phoenix Islands, Christmas Island, Fanning Island, the Gilbert Islands, and the Marshall Islands. But their search did not provide any results.
How upsetting if you're looking for your loved one and they could have crashed in a plane. You just have no idea where they are. It's almost like she disappeared off the face of the earth.
Well, that's the thing. And they started searching an hour after they stopped receiving transmission. So you would think
what's crazy.
They would have found something. And they didn't. They didn't find a plane. They didn't find bodies.
So what happened? But ultimately, the plane and the bodies were never found. And the official theory was that the plane crashed at sea and it sunk to the point of not being able to be visible by search parties, which is possible. Definitely possible. They could have gone down at any point and their plane would have sunk. We didn't have nearly as good technology like radar to find them underneath the water. And it could have sunk very quickly, even if they brought people out to search for her within an hour. It's not like they were at the exact place that her plane was on top of the water. It doesn't take that long for it to sink.
Right. Well, and the search area was probably, not super defined, and they only had so many resources out there in those remote islands. So
it could have been somewhere beyond the search area.
Right. Or they could have literally just went right over where they might have crashed. And
that's true.
The plane was already too far under the water that you can't see it. And it's not like at this time, you know, like you said, they don't have the technology to really search underneath it. You know, can't use, you know, divers and things like that to try to go under, or submarines even to go under to look for this plane.
Right. And they were getting those, you know, distress calls, but they weren't sure if it was actually from Amelia. But eventually they determined them to just be misunderstandings or hoaxes, which we're not sure about.
Yeah.
Who really knows? But
yeah. So here's the theory from the officials. So Commander Warner K. Thompson, the captain of the Coast Guard cutter Itasca, who was waiting for the Electra at Howland Island, believes that Earhart simply ran out of gas shortly after her transmissions and then crashed her plane at sea. What's interesting is that naval officers in Honolulu stated that they had to have made it to land in order to transmit these signals, stating that it was the only way for them to operate the engine or recharge the batteries. So that's interesting, because if those were the last things that were coming through from them, and it's true that they have to be, you know, over land to do that, then it does make you wonder if maybe they crashed on an island or they landed the plane. And that's exactly what these naval officers thought, is that this eliminated the idea that the plane crashed in water. And because of this,
they launched the USS Colorado during the search and traveled 2,000 miles south and discovered radio signals believed to be from the lost plane. Also, George Putnam, her husband, clung to his belief that his wife had come down not in the sea, but on the land, because the radio batteries located under the ship's wings would have been put out of commission in the water. Dozens of amateurs continued to report messages from the lost plane's radio. But the Navy and Coast Guard radio experts always doubted that any of those messages were genuine.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question here, is whether or not those transmissions were actually from her and real.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, because it seems like logistically and realistically it wouldn't have worked. So those transmissions could have been from somebody else or something else entirely.
Unless she landed on land.
Right.
But eventually, Amelia Earhart was declared legally dead 18 months later, and we've never come up with a full conclusion that's been accepted by everyone as to what happened to her. So there's tons of different theories and ideas of what could have happened, what her final days could have looked like.
Right. So we're going to go through some of the different theories here. The first one has to do with the Marshall Islands and the Japanese. So on October 16th, 1937, there was an Australian tabloid newspaper titled Smith's Weekly, which published an article stating that the United States Navy used the disappearance in order to send aircraft over the Marshall Islands, which was an area some suspected that Japanese were building military installations on and violating a mandate from the League of Nations. Some of the other theories that started getting pushed were kind of wild. Like one theory stated that she was actually a part of the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor or even knew about it.
What the fuck?
And this theory grew larger after the screenplay Stand By to Die expanded on this idea and depicted Amelia Earhart and Noonan as U.S. spies.
Wow.
So the screenplay Stand By to Die was actually purchased and released under the title Flight for Freedom in 1943. And the characters in the film actually depicted Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. And because that the characters resembled these two so closely, George Putnam was actually paid a fee in order to avoid a lawsuit. So obviously this film started portraying them in a bad light and as spies, and he did not like that at all. But this didn't put the theory to rest, because the same week the film was released, a man who was on board the Colorado during the search, M.L. Britton, stated that he agreed with this theory, fueling even more people to see the film, which this could have been just to make their film successful. But at the same time, I mean, at what expense? I mean, it's starting to make people think that they really are spies and involved with the Japanese.
Ridiculous.
But by 1944, the rumor that Amelia had been captured by the Japanese or were working with the Japanese had faded. However, 4 years later, in 1948, her mother actually came forward and stated to the press that she felt that Amelia could be in the Marshall Islands and felt her daughter had been involved with the government in secret. This statement was not taken lightly, and the U.S. Army intelligence and the United Press launched independent investigations in the Marshall Islands, but they could not find any evidence or witnesses to these claims. What's interesting is that later on in 1960, there were 3 U.S. Air Force officers that were stationed on Guam, and they produced a list of names of all the witnesses on Saipan who had allegedly seen Earhart and Noonan in custody of the Japanese.
Isn't that interesting? There's a lot of witnesses that claim to have seen Amelia Earhart.
Mm-hmm. And with the Japanese as well.
However, of course, officials quickly deemed all these claims as false, but another witness came forward. Josephine Blanco Akiyama from San Mateo, California, stated that as a young girl on Saipan, she witnessed both Earhart and Noonan being taken prisoner. Why would she just make that up? What would the point of that be?
It gets you attention, I guess.
Yes,
if you say you saw it, and it's not like anybody can really validate that claim.
Well, there's a lot of other people who have claimed to see it as well.
It's true. But this particular report caught the attention of KCBS radio reporter Fred Gorner, and he launched his own investigation into the claim. And it would later turn into one of his best-selling books, the 1966 book titled The Search for Amelia Earhart, which depicted Amelia Earhart as an agent for the government who was forced to land in the Marshall Islands and imprisoned in Saipan. And in his book, he further stated that she was probably dying of malnutrition and disease.
There's another book called Amelia Earhart Survived, and it presented a similar theory, the possibility that Amelia could have ditched her plane in the Marshall Islands, returned to the United States under a different name. That's an interesting theory. Why would she want to do that, though? She'd made such a great name for herself.
Right, and what's the purpose that she's going to play in that, in like some type of secret government operation? The author of this book was named Roland C. Reineck, and he was a retired U.S. Air Force colonel. And he was quoted as saying, if she couldn't find Howland, plan B was to cut off communications and head for the Marshall Islands and ditch her airplane there. And when the U.S. government came to look for Earhart, they would have been able to spy on the Japanese, but somewhere along the way, the plan went wrong. Do you think that there was more of a purpose to this trip than just flying around the world to break a record? And she could have been used as some type of spy or government agent to spy on the Japanese?
I mean, she could have been. It just seems like a lot of effort just to be able to spy on the Japanese. Like there could have been other ways they could have gone about
easier
doing
ways.
that.
Yeah, it seems pretty far-fetched. But this theory was even furthered most recently in 2015 by Dick Spink.
Dick Spink.
A high school science teacher who collected oral histories from people on the Marshall Islands. And he claims that Amelia Earhart and Noonan landed on a small atoll, which is a ring-shaped reef island or a chain of islands formed by coral named Millie. And in an interview, he's quoted as saying, "The world needs to know this. I heard a consistent story from too many people in the Marshalls to dismiss it. They say she landed at Millie."
That's what they all say. And even the schools there teach that and talk about that. She's even on their stamps. Have you seen that in the Marshall Islands?
Yeah.
They have stamps with her plane and like face on it.
Yeah.
It's a big part of their history there, and they fully believe it. It's a lot of people that claim to have seen her.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because like people that live there and families there say our uncles and aunts, our parents and our grandparents know she landed here.
It's not a theory to them.
No.
It's fact. And Dick Spink actually believed in this theory so much that he invested $50,000 of his own money into the search for Amelia Earhart's supposed last landing spot.
Wow.
But he wasn't able to find it. Then there's that famous photo that came out in 2017. And this is so interesting. And this is so interesting to me, but it's very controversial and highly debated whether or not it's real. But in 2017, the Today Show aired a never-before-seen photo that came from a History Channel documentary about Amelia Earhart's disappearance from the U.S. National Archives. And it's argued that this picture has Amelia Earhart and Noonan in it on the dock at the Marshall Islands. And it looks exactly like them. And who else that would be looking like them would be in this area at the time? You know what I'm saying? It's just they're totally out of place in this photo. But this has been, I guess, kind of debunked, which I still don't think it's debunked personally. But
well, many people believe that this photo was just a way to boost viewership. And a Japanese military history blogger, Kota Yamano, claims that the photo was taken 2 years before she actually disappeared in 1935.
But I still want to know who the hell that is then, and why does it look exactly like them? And it could have been documented the wrong year.
Right.
That's not for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever seen proof of the actual date itself. Like, I don't think we can see it. We can see the photo in the archives, but I don't think the actual date itself is out there. And it's definitely not on the photograph itself.
But the blogger was really pissed off because they felt like the History Channel just didn't even appear to search for the origin of the photograph and make sure that it's real
before they just push it. Yeah.
But I don't know. I think maybe there's a reason they want us to think was taken earlier.
Right.
You know? Because that's a pretty damning photo if that's her. And it looks exactly like them, like I'm saying. I mean, I could be wrong, of course. But I want you guys to look at this photo and tell me what you think. I mean, who else that looks like that would have been there?
Mm-hmm.
It's just random. These random islands in the middle of nowhere.
It does look very similar to them. I mean,
very
it's
similar.
A white woman with short hair.
Not many women even had short hair back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like how many? Yeah.
And to have them both in the picture, it really looks like Noonan. If you look at pictures of him, you can see the nose and everything. I don't know, man. I think it's real.
Right.
I think that's them.
Well, it's also possible that it got entered in the archives wrong.
Absolutely possible.
On purpose. Because they're like, we hope nobody will ever find this evidence of them being there. Because, yeah, I mean, who took the picture and why is it there at all? It's just this random picture at this point.
If it's not them, who is it?
Exactly. So there's also another theory that kind of goes back to her being captured by the Japanese and being a U.S. spy, and it's called the Irene Bolam theory. But the actual Irene Bolam theory comes from the book Amelia Earhart Lives by Joseph Gervais. And in the book, it says Amelia Earhart indeed did survive a plane crash, but was taken prisoner by the Japanese. But after World War II, she was sent to New Jersey and lived her life under the name Irene Bolam and became a banker. However, the real Irene Bolam denied these claims and sued for $1.5 million in damages. And obviously, there's never been any government documents indicating that she was ever a U.S. spy, ever. And there's just no proof of that. I think a lot of people just kind of jumped on this story in order to make money for themselves and just kind of put their opinion out there in order to create speculation and theories around it, but really had no base in reality.
Well, people wanted answers so bad. This was like the greatest mystery of all time. I mean, this is someone that people loved, really looked up to, and she just disappeared and there was no answer of where she went.
Yeah.
That was weird at the time.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Things like this didn't really happen, or people didn't, wouldn't know about things like this that happened.
No, people were obsessed with finding out the truth.
Mm-hmm. And especially with all the conflict in the world at the time, I'm sure people were really like, I'm sure there was a lot of conspiracy people at the time that were like, maybe they're involved with the government or
maybe
the enemy.
Right. Who knows?
Another theory that has gained some steam is the Niku castaway theory. And this theory was presented by the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, and it speculates that Amelia Earhart and Noonan landed their plane on this island 350 nautical miles southwest of Howland Island. And they base this theory on Earhart's last radio transmission stating that they were on the line 157-337, indicating that the plane was flying on a northwest to southeast navigational line that bisected Howland Island, which definitely could be possible too. So they would have either gone northwest towards thousands of miles of open ocean or to the southeast towards Niku Island. And they state that of the 121 messages received by radio operators in that 10 days after her disappearance, at least 57 could have come from her plane.
I feel like she probably would have sent out more distress signals that, just didn't make it fully.
Yeah.
Because why would her last one have been so calm just talking about...
talking about like position of where she is.
337. Yeah. You'd
Not
think she'd
Mayday.
say something else. Yeah. There must have been some lost messages.
Or like, I'm out of gas. Or,
something.
Clearly it seems like their navigation was just off and and she knew that. And instead of, risking it in her eyes, she said, perhaps we'll keep going this way towards this other island and land there. And we'll try to notify people that that's where we're going to go.
And she would have notified them of whatever happened. Even if she was going down, she would have said, I'm going down, because she knows that there's so many people that are following her and need to know where she went and what happened. Like she wouldn't have just...
She had to have
those
known
were
that.
definitely not her last messages that she sent out.
No, it definitely doesn't seem like it. And they further backed this theory with the conditions of the island on that date, stating that the tide was lower than normal and revealed a reef along the shoreline. And it was long and flat enough for her plane to land on.
Wow.
And they believe the tide then ultimately destroyed her plane by the time the transmissions ended on July 13th, 1937.
That's possible.
That makes a lot of sense, honestly.
And then she'd be stuck there with no way to communicate.
Right. Literally castaway. So only a year later, a British party with intents of colonizing the island actually took a photo of the shoreline of this island. And they discovered an unidentified object that some believe could be the landing gear from a plane. So if you look at the photo, They clearly thought it was interesting enough to take an actual photograph of it at this time. And it does appear to look like something sticking out of the ocean, almost like
it totally
maybe
does.
the end of a landing gear, like a wheel even maybe.
And again, why would someone have taken it if
why would they
there
take
wasn't
the
a
time
reason?
if it wasn't
Yeah.
like
Something was
weird
going
enough
on.
that they're like, we're on this remote ass island. There
And
shouldn't
there's a
be
plane
anything
sinking.
here.
Yeah.
And yet, yeah, there's something sticking out of the water. And in 1938, this island was colonized as part of the Phoenix Island settlement by the British. And they did find airplane parts that they believe could have been from this Lockheed Electra plane that they were flying. And even more interesting, in 1940, 13 bones were discovered in the remains of a campfire, as well as remnants of 2 shoes, one being a man's shoe and the other being a woman's shoe. And they also discovered a box that would hold a navigation device. What the hell? So,
Yeah,
will another
come
plane
on.
go down there
Right?
by chance and it
Yeah,
happened to
that's
be a man and a
weird.
woman? Like, what are the chances of that?
I know.
I'd like to know those odds. And they actually shipped these items to Fiji in order to analyze them further, but they were actually lost. But measurements were taken before sending, and it was determined that the bones could belong to a woman of Amelia Earhart's size. That's weird too. Like how they just get lost. They just lost this potential evidence of Amelia Earhart.
I know. It's such bullshit.
Because
How does such serious evidence always get lost?
I know, right? You think they take every precaution to. And why'd they fly to Fiji? Isn't there
I
like
know.
why don't you just take
After
it back
they've
to the US?
spent so much manpower trying to find her and $4 million, and they're just going to lose a box with serious evidence. Okay, sounds good.
Seriously, like what the hell? But this International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery has led 12 expeditions to Nicaragua since 1989, and they were able to find a site similar to the one described by the British. They also discovered a site in which there was evidence of more fires and the remains of animal life, including fish, turtles, and birds, indicating that obviously someone had been hunting and eating meals there. And they also determined that the way that the clams had been opened as well, and the heads of the fish were not eaten, meant that the persons consuming the meals were most likely not Pacific Islanders. Because that would be the thing, like
Right, they
what
would have
other
done that.
people could have been there? Probably people that live in the area or on other islands. But they were eaten as if a person from the US or Britain had been there. And another large clue came from several glass bottles believed to be from the 1930s, which were discovered along with a freckle cream bottle that many believe was Amelia Earhart's.
What the hell was the point of a freckle cream? Is that supposed to fade your freckles or make
Hide 'em.
them more like,
Hide
well,
'em.
nowadays it would have been to make them more,
Pronounced.
Freckles are really in right now.
I think back then they probably hit him like for whatever reason.
But
Thought it
yeah,
was
she
weird.
had hella freckles, so maybe she wanted to have a freckle cream with her in the plane. I don't know. That's
It's an
really
essential
weird.
item.
But who else would have that in the middle of
Right.
the Marshall Islands?
Yeah, not a Pacific Islander. down
Definitely
there.
not.
So this theory is definitely one of those that I think sits at kind of the top of my list as far as theories that could have happened. Because I mean,
Me too.
it's the most evidence that's been found there. Airplane parts, bones from potentially a female and a male, food as if somebody had been there eating and hunting and like kind of maybe landed there and crashed or something like that. So it seems to me that that's a very likely
possibility.
theory. But those are the serious theories as to what happened. And this last one clearly sticks out as probably the most likely. But people have obviously said like the Bermuda Triangle, which I don't understand why this one even gets brought up because it's nowhere near where they were last seen. It's
People
nowhere-
just hear plane goes missing over ocean, Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah.
Such a stupid theory.
Well, I mean, I kind of get it. Like, obviously, there's been other, planes, especially back in this time period, that have gone missing. But
they weren't anywhere
the
near
location,
there.
right?
It just
The location
work.
makes absolutely no sense. But then the last theory is aliens. Of course, you got to always theorize that perhaps there was some type of alien abduction that occurred.
they were like, this girl is smart. We need to abduct her and take her out of this country, in this world. She's better than it.
Potentially, or they're really, stunned by her piloting skills. They're like, wow,
They're like, we need to
Look at
fly
this
our UFOs.
primitive thing.
Screw your planes. Wait
Yeah.
till you get a load of what we got.
yeah.
No,
But the
that's
theory,
ridiculous.
somebody actually created a theory about this.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. There's no evidence, of course, for this, but the theory states that aliens took her and cryogenically froze her in order to be later used for biological exams to maybe figure out, how somebody of this caliber ticks.
Interesting. Okay. So there's no evidence for that, right?
Absolutely. There's actually a lot of evidence. There's a picture in the archives that shows
her being beamed up
of a saucer hovering over the ocean. But no, I mean,
think about though.
In the end, searches still continue. People are still looking for this. It's like Oak Island at this point.
It is.
Where people
one
are
of the greatest
determined.
mysteries of all time.
Because imagine if you are the person that does actually find something of hers.
And you completely connect her to a location. That would be huge.
Huge news.
Yeah.
You'd be
maybe
famous.
we'll see that. Maybe we'll see that.
I hope so.
I'd love to see that.
But at this point, it's like, what do you guys think? What's your top theory? Like, what do you think is a scenario that happened to Amelia Earhart?
Of course, she could have just landed in the ocean, but I think she could have. I don't know. The fact that I don't know. I guess. What do you guys think? Because I guess there are so many possibilities, but I like to think that she landed.
I think she
survived for
really
a bit.
Yeah,
and was living her life.
I would agree with that. I think she did. I don't know if it was living her life, having a great old time on the island, but I think she was a prisoner and was used, as it's possible that the U.S. government did know that she was there, that she was used as a hostage, and they said, we have her, and they were like, well, we're not going to do what you want us to do to get her back, so we're just going to go ahead and pretend she went missing.
Right. It could be a huge cover up for all we know.
It could be. It definitely could be, especially if she was some type of spy for them and was working with the government.
Yeah, exactly. And it would make sense for, the Japanese also to have the last known photo of her and to lie about it.
That's what I'm saying. That picture is. I don't know. That's why I just feel like she isn't just crashed in the ocean. There's that picture is really convincing. It sticks out to me so much as it's not just death.
And just interviews of people that live in the Marshall Islands talking about this. They are so sure that she came. Like many of them remember seeing her, remember her walking on the boardwalk. I mean, they're not making this up. There's tons of them to the point where they literally had stamps printed with her on it. It's a huge part of their culture. And that's what really convinces me is why would they make that up? Why would they make that such a big thing if she didn't land there? I think she did.
I think so too.
Could you possibly entertain the idea that maybe they're all confused, and maybe if in fact that picture doesn't show Amelia Earhart and it's somebody else? I mean, somebody else, or even somebody claiming to be Amelia Earhart, that they just all sort of believe that whoever this individual was her, and that's why.
And
they
happened to fly
there.
a plane there and crash at the same time and land there.
That's true.
What white woman would be on the Marshall Islands at this time?
Yeah, that's
very true. Yeah.
Tell me who else this is then.
It looks so much. I know it's just the back
to believe
of
that.
her. It's not like the face or anything, but that's exactly right. Like she sticks out like a sore thumb.
And so does Fred.
And yeah, exactly. So does Fred.
And everyone they're with in the photo is clearly a local Islander.
And the fact that the two of them are together in the picture. It's not like there was a picture here that looks like Amelia and another picture looks like Fred. Like they're together. So why did two people like that would be together?
Yeah, maybe they were agents though. Maybe they're undercover agents for the military or something.
I guess. But why would they even take this picture? I don't know. This whole thing is weird. I think she landed in the Marshall Islands.
That's what I think.
I think she was eventually killed as a prisoner. There's a lot of theories around her being shot into a shallow grave because several people that lived in the Marshall Islands claim that they saw it happen, that she was they dug a grave, had them stand over it and shot them both into their graves. And that was the end of them. And there's still people out there that's looking for their bones and trying to find the grave site. And
on the Marshall Islands.
I don't know. Maybe they will find it one day.
I think that from my perspective, that theory makes a lot of sense. And I think it's definitely worth investigating more. But at the same time, I'm definitely with this historical society who's looked at the actual facts and data from this aircraft and the transmissions themselves. I mean, the fact that clearly they were almost out of gas, and two, they were, according to what they were calling out through the transmissions, if in fact they were hers, they were headed towards this Nicamaruro Island or whatever, and potentially they landed there because they were going to run out of gas, and so they knew that was the closest place that they could land, but there's nothing on this island, and then there's virtually no way to call for help if everything dies, the batteries die,
and they could have been taken prisoner.
Well, if there was anybody else on this island, but I think this island there's not much going on there, so I don't know. I think there's a very good possibility that they hit this island, but then again, it's I don't know. I feel like we would have found more there already. If they found a few airplane parts, I mean, how far away could the rest of the plane be? And, have they gone and searched underwater around this island or not?
Yeah, but the fact that they found bones and stuff, that's why I think she's there. But then again, she could be on the Marshall Islands too. So I mean, I just think that at some point, wherever she is, I don't think she's.
I think she ended up on a
underwater
island somewhere.
Definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It seems
she
less
was so
likely.
smart and skilled too. I think she could have possibly located an island and landed on it because she had so much skill when it came to flying.
Like, really? After all this, after flying 22,000 miles, she's just going to go down in the ocean?
Well, I mean, if she had no other choice, then maybe. But I think there's a possibility she could have landed. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We definitely want to know what you guys think. It's a controversial one, especially the recent picture, because so many people are just like, that's 100% fake. And
right.
I just don't believe that. I think there's plenty of reasons they would want us to think it was taken 2 years earlier than it was.
Right.
But,
well, it's such an easy change, changing a date.
Yeah. Things are archived wrong all the time. So I don't think it really proves it to be a false image.
No.
And like I said, who else is that then?
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't make sense.
Not at all.
Like, it looks so much like Noonan.
Mm-hmm. It really
Seriously,
does. It's shocking.
So much like him.
Yeah, if you look at photos.
Look at that nose.
I know.
The sun is beaming off of it.
It's
so similar.
He had a big nose, man. I don't know.
I don't know. Let us know what you guys think, though. Definitely an interesting one. But we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode there. Thanks again for listening to the Mile Higher podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, definitely subscribe and follow us on iTunes and Spotify, as well as on YouTube.
Give it a thumbs up.
See some of the pictures that we're actually looking at on YouTube, obviously.
But that is it for us this week. We will be back next week with a true crime episode.
Yes, I can't wait for that one.
Yes. But until then, make sure to always keep your mind a mile higher.